Hello and welcome to this episode of the Game Plan podcast by College Baseball Advisors. On the Game Plan, we try to learn lessons about baseball and life through talking with various baseball people about their journey and their own lessons learned in their experience. My name is Wayne Mazzoni. I coached 30 years of college baseball, and now I help recruits. For more information about what I do, you could visit my website, collegebaseballadvisor.com. On today's episode, we had Robert Woodard, who is the head baseball coach at Charlotte. Really an awesome experience talking to him for several things. Number one, he was raised in Charlotte, where he's now coaching. We talked about his experience playing sports, but also chess and the impact that had on him as a player and a coach. Talked about really life-changing experiences as a seventh grader going to the Jacksonville University baseball camp and kind of being with older kids and seeing the path ahead and kind of set the tone for his style and his work ethic as a player. Ultimately got recruited to go to UNC, played 4 years there, 2 years which included trips to the College World Series, was drafted as both a junior and then again as a senior, played for almost 3 years with the San Diego Padres before labrum surgery sort of sidelined him, and then he started his coaching career at UNC as a volunteer. He was also able to coach in the Cape, and which was fantastic for him because he played 3 years in Chatham under John Schiffner when he was a player, and then he coached in Orleans. We then talked about his journey from UNC. He went to UNCW to coach for a year. He went to Virginia Tech to coach the pitchers for 3 years, and then he was back to UNC, where he explains how Coach Forbes, who was the pitching coach at the time, actually switched over to coach hitters to allow Robert to come in and work with the pitchers and the experience that was. And then at UNC, how they started to use students to help them with analytics for pitchers and really a lot of interesting things as it relates to coaching and using the analytics. In 2019, he got the job at Charlotte. He's been there since. Obviously had the COVID year, but has really done a great job with that program in terms of wins, conference record, pick players drafted, and he's got a neat thing going down there at his program. I'd like to remind you that this podcast is made possible through the generous sponsorship of the World Baseball Coaches Convention, which takes place tomorrow. Today is January 14th, Wednesday. It starts tomorrow, January 15th, at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut. A lot of great speakers, Jim Penders from UConn, Tracy Smith from Michigan, JP Pine from Amherst, Tucker Frawley with the Mets. The list goes on and on. So for more information about the event, the vendors, the space, even the schedule, go visit them at baseballcoachesclinic.com, and hopefully we see you there tomorrow. So without further delay, here's my conversation with Robert Woodard, head baseball coach at Charlotte. All right, Robert, you're going to be a fun guy to talk to for a lot of reasons, but rarely, I'd say one out of every 10, I get someone like you, which I've never met before. We've never conversed. There's no backstory to our interaction, which is fine. I'll certainly get to learn a lot about you. Um, so doing some research, I have a lot of things I'm going to ask, and it seems obvious. You were born and raised, is that accurate, in Charlotte?
Born in Winston-Salem, and
Okay.
then when I was 4 or 5, uh, my family moved to Charlotte. So, I mean, basically grew up in Charlotte, and dad was in banking, finance. So Winston-Salem, Charlotte, two big cities for that. Yep.
And from an athletic standpoint, in junior high, high school, clearly baseball was a big part of it. Were you playing other sports as a kid?
Yeah, I played. Um, So grew up, baseball was always number one for me, just because I wanted basketball to be number one. My dream was to play basketball at the University of North Carolina for Coach Dean Smith. Like that's what I wanted to do. But it seems like every middle school or high school tryout, I was making the top team as a baseball player, and I was either getting cut or making the JV team as a basketball player. So, just in terms of a little self-evaluation, I was always kind of ahead of the curve on baseball. And then, yeah, I played a little bit of middle school football just to kind of get that experience and sit a bench and also play a little bit of quarterback. And then, uh, but probably my number two sport, I would say, was actually competitive chess. So from first grade to eighth grade, when I wasn't on a field or outside, I had chess coaches. I was on a chess team with my classmates, and we played in tournaments all over the country. And I think in fifth grade we finished third in the country in the K5 division, and then in sixth grade I kind of peaked as a chess player. I actually won the K6 North Carolina state chess championship for on an individual standpoint. But then it was kind of I kind of reached a point where it was like, hey, we got to put a lot more time, effort, energy into sports, and so chess kind of took a back burner, and baseball got the most attention.
So, that is the first time chess has come up on the 70th podcast here. However, I always grew up playing a little bit. Now, my relaxing thing to do is play chess on my phone.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, do you still do it? Do you still play?
I play probably 10 games a day, honestly. But I play 1-1 bullet. I don't know if you know what that is, but
No, is it quick?
it is like I play I play about 10 1-1 bullet games a day, which is like both players have 1 minute total time, and then every time you make a move, you get 1 second added. So the typical length of a game is about 2 to 3 minutes long,
Hmm.
and I play probably like 8 to 10 of those a day, honestly. So I love it. It is we could do a whole podcast on the parallels of chess and baseball and what it's done for me, just in terms of just how I approached it as a player, but also now as a coach, just in terms of just like the way I look at things. And I'm certainly not like a professional chess player by any means, so it's nothing along those lines. But I was fortunate to have some really great coaches, on in that world, and much of the lessons that those guys taught me apply to the game of baseball, like just how we fundamentally like reviewed games and would go back over, and you could play your best game or your worst game. You were going to have to sit down and look at it and review it and learn from your mistakes and that sort of thing. And we do the same thing in baseball, did the same thing as players. So there's a lot of parallels.
I know this from my own thing with chess. If I am in any way distracted by anyone or anything, I will lose every time. If
Yeah,
I'm if I'm locked in, I have a chance,
yep.
you know.
And most of the time I play kind of like as I'm winding down in the evening, and it's like
Right.
playing tired is like one of the worst things you just that's when it gets really ugly.
Right, exactly. So at what point, I assume all through high school, the goal was to play college baseball. You knew you were talented enough. What do you remember about the recruiting process for you?
Yeah, for me, I never assumed I was talented enough. Like I always had this like, you have to prove yourself kind of mentality. One of the best things that I did, honestly, was as a seventh grader. One of my best friends he was an eighth grader, and he was a better player than me, and he had family down in Jacksonville University or Jacksonville, Florida, that he would go visit in the winter. And like I started tagging along with him to go to Jacksonville University baseball camp. Which for me was awesome, because as a seventh grader, I was getting to be around ninth through 12th graders, like get out of my Charlotte baseball pond and go, be a fish out of water, with some bigger, better kids and that way it was kind of like, okay, like if I can hang with these guys, then uh, that gives me confidence. And if I can't, then that just shows me the things I need to work on. So just starting to go to prospect camps as a seventh grader was big for me. And then as I got older and older, it became clear that my future was on the mound and not at shortstop in the batter's box. And so it was like almost kind of like sophomore year of high school, I was kind of equal at both. And then it turned into where the harder I worked at hitting and fielding, the almost like the worse I got. And then it was like the harder I worked at pitching, the better I got. And
Right.
so I'm sure there's a mental game thing there in terms of just like overthinking swing mechanics and that sort of thing. And then pitching, I was
Right.
just like, way more explosive and athletic and uh, that sort of thing. But, so then pretty much junior and senior year, it became clear that my future was going to be on the mound. And the 60-yard dash taught me a lot about that too.
Right.
You can't hide there.
No.
And And so, yeah, I kind of just kept going to Jacksonville University camp. I went to Georgia Tech, Duke, Wake Forest, bunch of camps, played in a bunch of events, and but I kept going back to the UNC baseball camp, which is where my both my parents went to school at UNC. That's where they met. They were actually married there when they were still undergraduate students. Um, so I grew up, kind of always passing through Chapel Hill, and so I kept going to the prospect camps there, almost like I'm going to keep coming to camp until you tell me no. And thankfully, just I think by my sixth or seventh camp, Coach Fox offered me a $1,500 scholarship to go play at UNC. I would have. It didn't matter to me. I was go. That's where I wanted to be. Um, so, that's I ended up going there the fall of 2003 and pitching there for 4 years.
So a couple of interesting things. Number one, I've been lecturing even when I was still coaching in college. I would lecture at high schools to athletes and parents in all sports on recruiting. And I would always tell them what you kind of said. I'm like, go out as early. I'm not saying recruiting has to start in seventh grade, but go to these places to get motivated to see what the competition is and to actually figure out what you need to work on. It's better to figure it out in seventh or eighth grade than figure it out in your senior year. You're too slow or whatever your sport is. So, the great point that you going to Jacksonville early really put you on that path. And then the other interesting part is, well, you did get to UNC, but it wasn't playing hoops for Dean Smith. It was playing baseball for Coach Fox. Um, Tell me about a little bit about your career there. Obviously, you did pretty well to be able to get drafted out of there. Did you get time early in your career, or was it a learning curve at the beginning?
Oh, I mean, it was a learning curve my entire 4 years there. I mean, it was felt like every bullpen session and every scrimmage and every time I got to pitch in a game, it was like kind of like sink or swim for me. I mean, that's just how I approached it. I never approached it like I've arrived or, that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I was always kind of like a strike thrower, pitchability guy. And, at this level, the Division I level, like when you can establish, whatever you are in some level of consistency and the coaching staff you can build some trust with who you're going to be when you're in the lineup or you're on the mound. I was really able to do that from the beginning of my freshman fall. So I actually started my career as our closer. I only had one college save, and it was my second career. Might actually no, it was my first. It was my first career appearance, my freshman
Mhm.
year opening weekend, and then like two or three appearances later, I didn't have a good appearance, and I got moved to the bullpen and kind of just was a middle relief guy who pitched his way into a Tuesday starter about halfway of my freshman year. I think I made my first Tuesday start, I don't know, middle of March, end of March, and then pretty much just stayed on Tuesday starter, weekend reliever my whole freshman year for about 50 or 55 innings. Um, I always wanted to play in Cape Cod, and then I didn't really have that opportunity right out of the gate, and so my dad and I drove to San Diego, and I trained in San Diego, California, for about 5 or 6 weeks with Tom House,
Mm.
pitching coach
Wow.
out there,
Of
and about
course.
a dozen other college pitchers. I just felt, if the Cape doesn't feel like I'm good enough to go up there and play, then I need to get better. So I wanted to train, and then I got a phone call from Coach Fox around the 4th of July, um, that spot had opened in Chatham. So my dad and my brother flew out. They drove my car back. I flew to Chatham right after the 4th of July that summer, and then I pitched well enough to get invited back the next 2 summers. So I was a rare 3 tour Cape Cod League, Chatham A, now Angler, and my sophomore year I kind of started as our midweek starter again, and by week 3 I made my first weekend start against the University of Michigan and had a really good start in freezing cold weather over at East Carolina tournament, the Keith LeClaire Classic. And but that one Sunday start kind of changed my career from the standpoint from that point forward. I was predominantly a weekend starter the rest of my career. And truthfully, I only got to start that game on Sunday because our Sunday starter that weekend decided he wasn't, he decided he wasn't going to go to class, or he got caught not going to class, and Coach Fox wouldn't let him pitch and called me in and said I was going to start. So, if my teammate goes to class, I probably don't get that start, and who knows, maybe things are different.
Yeah, well, obviously you were ready for that opportunity. For the Cape, was Schiffner coaching the A's then?
He
Yeah,
was, yeah,
yeah.
he's the best, just an absolute legend, and the best memories playing for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Connecticut guy, and I've known Schiff for a long time. My in-laws live in the Cape, so I've been to a million games. Several of the players I coached, actually one played for Chatham for Schiff too. So it's, kind of like, again, you and I don't know each other, but it's a small baseball world. So certainly our, people we know together there. Um, when were you drafted your junior or senior year at UNC?
I was drafted really late, like in the 40 something round my junior year. And they made me a solid offer to with the St. Louis Cardinals to start my career, my playing career. But, that was, like I said, I was in like a 46 round draft pick, kind of a draft follow type offer. And, we had just lost the national championship game 3 against Oregon State and won 54 games. I pitched in the same weekend rotation with Daniel Bard and Andrew Miller, both first round draft picks. Obviously, a very bitter taste in my mouth from coming one game short of uh, of winning a national title. And I don't know. I just kind of said it wasn't life changing money at the standpoint. And with Andrew and Daniel moving on as first rounders, I don't know. There's a part of me that wanted to. I knew that the opportunity to go back and finish my degree and be a leader of the team and help that program, try to make another run at winning a national title, was just really important to me. So turned down the opportunity and to go with the Cardinals and went back to school. I always tell people, Coach Fox, Coach Forbes, Coach Holbrook, that coaching staff, they took care of my family and I from a scholarship standpoint to do so. Much of how we do things here at Charlotte, as far as really taking care of our guys that come here and do things the right way and work hard and help us between the lines. We always try to take care of those guys first before future guys that haven't come in here yet. But they did that for me. And, little did I know that we would actually play for the national championship again in '07 against the same Oregon State team. And it was a different run. We were a little bit on fumes when we got there and we lost in 2 games, but we still, I think, won 57 games and lost the national championship again before I was drafted by the San Diego Padres and was, in the 20th round and went and joined the organization for about 2.5, 3 years. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, first of all, pretty amazing junior and senior year experiences to play on teams that are at that level. I mean, that must be pretty special memories to look back and, obviously you didn't win it, but how many people get there? That's a pretty tremendous experience and being a big part of it on the mound. I'm sure you still have your buddies that you'd stay in touch with from that era that you guys went through a whole heck of a lot together.
of course. Yeah, we still have, there's still a group chat with about 14 or 15 of us in there that, um, mostly married kids and, uh, they're always asking about our teams here at Charlotte and how we're doing and just different things going on there and with each other. Like we've all stayed tight, and that's one of the biggest things. Like, what's one of my favorite parts about what I get to do now is like here at Charlotte is build teams that will stay tight and together for decades to come. I mean, out this window right here. I mean, you can't see it, but there's Nate Furman, Jake Cunningham, um, a bunch of pro guys that work out here every single day, and they're all super tight. I mean, so that's what this deal is all about. It's about the fellowship. It's about the camaraderie. It's about the experiences with one another. And it changed my life. All those experiences changed my life for the better. And so just feel very blessed to be at a great place like Charlotte to try and recreate that here.
And I definitely want to unpack Charlotte for sure. I do want to ask a few other things, which is that minor league experience coming off. with your buddies, going for a couple of national championships, getting thrown into the minors, a total different vibe. Did you love it? Did you feel the loss of like it's totally different than my college experience? What do you remember about that?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I think it's every player's dream to, to be able to put on a professional or major league uniform and go make a living and um, or at least make a run at it and have no regrets type deal. But I mean, I tell people, I mean, for me, when you're healthy and you're on a winning professional team, like it's hard to beat.
Hmm.
When you're healthy, you're playing well, and you're on a winning team. Where again, I played minor league baseball a long time ago, almost 20 years, and it's way better now than it used to be.
Yeah,
Um, so I'm certainly not knocking anything about the experience, but it's just, when you're a minor leaguer who's, I don't know, you're either injured, not playing well, you're on a team that's not winning. It's like you start stacking those things on top of each other, then um, those are some I call they're seriously valuable lessons because I mean, for me, it was kind of like you said, it was you get to a place where you're on a team where you're pitching every week into the sixth, seventh, eighth inning. When you're not pitching, you're watching your team win. You're playing for two national championships. It's like you get like acclimated to that, and
right.
that's like that becomes your normal, right? And so then it's like you get out of that environment and you go get tested on a rehab process if you're injured, a bad month of performance between the lines, uh, being on a team where maybe you are playing well, but you're on a 10-game losing streak and you've never experienced something like that. So those are just things that I always look back on, and those are just lessons that I really got to learn for 2.5, 3 years as a minor league pitcher. And then, when I ran into a shoulder labrum injury, um, my third pro season, and pretty much 8 months into rehab, I was kind of pitching for my job in a sense. Like
Right.
my rehab bullpens were being evaluated in spring training, and it's sort of like I don't know. I think anybody out there that's seen a pitcher 8 months post shoulder surgery knows it's not going to be great. And so um, I got released. Was totally at peace with it. I felt as though that when I was healthy, I was able to do everything I wanted to do. But to the point we talked earlier, like I grew up watching Coach Dean Smith. Like that was when I watched college basketball games. Like I watched the coaches almost more than I did the players. I mean, it's hard not to watch Jerry Stackhouse and Vince Carter and those guys, but I always watched Coach Smith. I always, how he revered his players and the standards that he always held, and the way that the players talked about their experiences playing for Coach Smith and the impact he had. I mean, that was something that I always, and really, I won't even say the back of my mind, kind of more the center of my mind. I knew like playing was at the forefront, but then afterwards, I always wanted to get into coaching and, um, you know, never imagine. I don't think any coach gets into this thinking they're going to be the next, Dean Smith. He's a generational, like once in a lifetime coach, but you just see the impact that he had, and um, I don't know. So right when I got released, Coach Fox called me and offered me the opportunity to be a volunteer assistant coach there for 2 years and start my coaching journey. And here we are, 16 years later.
Which is certainly a great recap. And that's what I was going to ask you. Did you know coaching was your path? And it sounds like you did. So obviously you go back to UNC during, I believe it was during the UNC time as a coach. Did you also coach in the Cape as well?
So 2011, my first full year coaching. We went to the College World Series, got knocked out by Sonny Gray and a really good Vanderbilt team. And then 2012, we were a national seed and we lost in a regional that we hosted to a really, really good St. John's team. And then that summer I went up and I coached in Orleans for Kelly Nicholson in the Cape Cod League. And again, I mean, I am like the most blessed, spoiled college player coach ever, from having to like, um, now coach in my hometown, played and coached at my parents' alma mater. And then when I wasn't doing that, I was playing summer ball or coaching summer ball for John Schiffner and Chatham and Kelly Nicholson and Orleans. It's like you really can't be more spoiled than that. So, uh, Kelly gave me my, I mean, I always tell, Kelly gave me that was my first pitching coach job. I mean, that was, hey, you're the pitching coach. You've got 15 arms. They're from all over the country. They're really talented. Help those guys be successful. And because when I was a volunteer, Scott Forbes was the pitching coach, and my job was really just to make his job easier. It was like
Right.
I was kind of like the assistant pitching coach, and then so yeah, that experience with in Orleans was amazing, and I've gotten got to spend 4 summers of my life up in Cape Cod, and my wife Ashley and I, she's actually the head softball coach at South Carolina, so we have a very college coaching driven family, and we always joke about how cool it would be, you know, whenever the coaching career starts to wind down, for that maybe be like a retirement job to go up there and coach one day. But we're a long ways away from that.
Yeah, it's funny. That's crossed my mind too. When I was coaching, in the summer, you're busy recruiting. You can't do that. But yeah, it's a pretty neat place. It hasn't changed much up in the Cape. The crowds, the simplicity of the joy of the baseball up there. Obviously, after UNC, you go to UNCW coaching. You go to Virginia Tech. What was the total time you were at both of those places?
So Coach Scaff offered me an opportunity to be his pitching coach right out of the Cape. So I went straight from Orleans down to Wilmington and I was with Coach Scaff and Coach Hood for a year, and then Virginia Tech called. They hosted a regional in 20 that year in 2013, and that was when Coach Hughes had gotten the opportunity to go be the head coach at Oklahoma. There was a bunch of change turnover at Virginia Tech, and they needed a pitching coach and called me. And so the fall of summer of 2013 through the spring of 2016 for 3 years, I was the pitching coach at Virginia Tech and up there in Blacksburg. And after my 3 years at Virginia Tech, thankfully, Coach Fox and Coach Forbes had an opening on staff. They actually didn't have a pitching coach job opening because Scott Jackson was the recruiting coordinator and he got the head job to go to Liberty. So they had a hitting guy recruiting job open, and Scott Forbes, who's like arguably, in my mind, he's the best college baseball coach in the country. He just says, no big deal. Like, I'll go coach the hitters. Keep in mind, he's been coaching, like, he's been the best pitching coach in Division I for like a decade. And he just says, no, no big deal. I'm going to go coach the hitters, and you can come here and be the pitching coach. And, that decision just changed my life. I mean,
Hmm.
I got to go from Virginia Tech back to my alma mater at UNC, and I walked right into 𝐃𝐨𝐫𝐠𝐞𝐭, like first round Friday guy, ACC pitcher of the year, um, and a loaded freshman class with Austin Bergner, Tyler Baum, Gianluca Delatry, uh, just a just a workhorse of a pitching staff that, for 3 years I got to just kind of coach and be a part of there, before Charlotte called. So I was at Wilmington for one, Virginia Tech for three, and then back as the pitching coach for three at UNC.
One question about that time at UNC. And this is something we might get into in a little bit talking about Charlotte, but you know, the pitching world has completely changed seemingly from metrics and all, which could be its own. We could do a chess podcast and then we could do a pitching development podcast. I fall more into the old school camp, although, Butch Thompson always said you got to be in school, you got to be constantly learning, et cetera, which I love. But back in the time at UNC was the metrics part, the a little bit of the modern analytics, a big part of that job at that time, or no?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so I was very fortunate from the standpoint that, I mean, I pretty much got my teeth kicked in for 3 years at Virginia Tech as the pitching coach there. I mean, you can go look at the numbers don't lie. Um, but it taught me so much. And I mean, our pitchers were awesome at Virginia Tech, and they got after it. It just, for one reason or another, we just really didn't have a whole lot of success. So when I got the opportunity at North Carolina in fall of 2016, I kind of walked into that opportunity and said, I'm not going to make the same mistakes or let the same thing happen here that, were issues at Virginia Tech. And part of that was UNC had been a first mover on installing a TrackMan stadium unit into their stadium. So they had like 1 or 2 years of full data already from um, the previous seasons. And it was, at that time, hadn't really done a whole lot with it. They were kind of like, here, we don't really know what to do with it. And quite
Right.
frankly, I didn't really know what to do with it. Um, but we had about a one, we had 1 or 2 full seasons of data points. So like I had every pitch that JB had thrown, like like on a CSV and all of our returning pitchers and that sort of thing. So long story short, one of my first weeks on the job, a kid by the name of Micah Daly Harris, he walked into our offices and basically said, "Hey, like I want to help the baseball program. I'm a mathematics economics major. I'm a freshman. I'll do anything." And I was like, "Well,
Hmm.
I got a bunch of recruits that I need to like correspond with. Can you help me like like just brute force like input all of their data into our recruiting database?" And he said, "Sure." So one night I was at the stadium. Well, I was at the stadium late pretty much every night. I think every first year coach, no matter the job, like you're gonna be there late. And so I was late there one night, and he had already done all the things I'd asked him, like that. And then he was working on. He was just looking at our TrackMan data on his own from previous years, and I'm like, "What you got?" And he said, "Oh, I'm just kind of filtering through and trying to make some pitcher reports for." For what for your guys. And I was like, "You know how to do that?" He goes, "Oh yeah." And so like he knew how to code, he knew how to like create software. He was brilliant. And I just said, "Hey, look, I mean, this was my first fall." I said, "From this point forward, like you're not going to put headshots on recruiting databases and type in mailing addresses. Like this is what you're going to do." And I mean, from that point forward, it was kind of like he was he would do all the coding and the analytic processing, and I would kind of be almost like the interpreter and like what we
Right.
need. And then I would get the information to our players. And then that turned into like he needed help, so he hired 3 or 4 assistants, and then it turned into by our third year we had a team of like 20 students, and I was in
Wow.
like analytics meetings with like all this group of students had this responsibility, like it could be the weather, it could be field conditions or like outfield dimensions. This group could be on like umpire scouting. This could be on like
Wow.
opposing hitters. These guys are on opposing pitchers. And then they would like give me all this information, and then I would share it with our staff and get it to our players. And I mean, I look back on, I'm just like, man, that was a lot. And and then also too, now the cool thing is like those guys are in professional baseball. Like Michael works for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and a bunch of those analysts, we started an analytics team, and it's like you're looking around and those guys are still in professional baseball. So um that was a big part of it. One more cool story I will share that really impacted um kind of the way that I view like metrics and analytics as like opportunities is I won't say which team or which analyst, but like a pretty prominent Major League Baseball analyst uh, is a friend of mine, and he came by our stadium my first fall there, and I handed him some of Micah's report one of Micah's reports where I'd asked Micah to put all of our like basically our standard like pitch shape metrics for this analyst to review, because I wanted this analyst to basically tell me which pitches we needed to throw more of and which pitches
Right.
we needed to throw less of, or which pitchers, because I was a new pitching coach, right? And so I'm going to be biased towards the guys who pitched well last year, but I also want to find opportunities with the pitchers who maybe are new or didn't have success. Um, so I handed this prominent MLB analyst like all of our pitchers, all of their pitch metrics on one page. And I said, "What stands out to you?" And he, I thought he was going to like go right to JB because JB's stuff is just electric and he's going to be a first rounder and it's crazy. It would like all of his pitch types were just crazy. But he went to a pitcher that had redshirted the year before. That was the first guy he named. And I was like, "What about him?" And he goes, "Well, he's got a 3100 RPM breaker that's like I can't remember that like he's got a Clayton Richard breaking ball and he's got a major league average changeup. So he has two major league off speed pitches." I said, "That's interesting." He goes, "Yeah, like how much does he pitch for y'all?" And he had redshirted the previous year. He didn't pitch.
Right.
And so I'm like, all right. Like he wasn't really on my radar for being like a top, like not that, but it was like, hey, this guy is more important than maybe I thought, from just like a uh pitching staff usage depth chart type deal. And so sure enough, I went up to that pitcher and I told him, I said, "Hey, it's like, did you know that your breaker is like 3,000 RPMs and like has the same shape as Clayton Richards?" And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "Did you know that your changeup's like big league average profile?" And he said, "No." I was like, "Well, they are, and we're gonna throw those a lot." And he is an All American closer that year. Great.
That's incredible.
It was so to me, it's like analytics is for me is very much a checks and balances. It's going to confirm what your eyes see mostly. Um, but it's also going to reveal some opportunities where, hey, this guy's better than we think he is, or if this guy does this a little bit more, or he stops doing this, I mean, that's so much is like is pitching is like some guys just throw pitches that they think are good that aren't very good. They keep throwing them and they don't have success, and they're like, "Why am I not having success?" And it's like, well, that pitch actually isn't a strength, even though
Right.
maybe so. Long story short, I mean, yeah, those are just some of the, you know, working with Micah, developing an analytics team that we felt like was very actionable and usable for our coaching staff and players. Um, and then also my interaction with that MLB analyst uh, that showed me that there are things that your eyes can't see, and there you have every one of us has biases towards this guy's a big recruit, this guy's on big scholarship, this guy throws hard, this guy doesn't throw hard. That guy didn't throw hard. Like he didn't throw hard at all.
Right.
And he wasn't big and he wasn't the strongest in the weight room. Like so, if you I don't want to say like if you know where to look, but if you kind of learn where to look, then you can start to tap into some real opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great story. And back in my pitching coach days, I did something not similar, but maybe similar, is I would always poll all the hitters with a pretty elaborate system and have them give me feedback on every pitcher that they faced, all the pitches, did they want to face this guy? What do they think of that pitch? And then like bring that back to the pitchers. And even sometimes in hitting group, like a pitcher would throw to five hitters for 2 innings in a row. And then, hey, you guys go sit by there and talk out what you saw about each other. So you're right. Something tells me maybe eventually you would have found this guy's strengths, but this analyst saying, hey, there's a guy here that's pretty legit. That's a neat story. Let's switch gears here now to Charlotte. Um, for a couple of things. First of all, must be pretty awesome in the place you grow up, the university there. You're now the head baseball coach. That's pretty cool. Um, I don't know much about Charlotte. I'm a Northeast guy. For people that are watching, listening, can you just talk about the school before we get a little bit into the baseball program?
Yeah, I know it is certainly cool. I mean, I was 9 years an assistant coach at those places we talked about, and I would come home for holidays and see family, and I would have moments where I'm like, man, how cool would it be to be able to live here and coach baseball? But in my mind, I would always go to, well, there's only UNC Charlotte, where Coach Hibbs was here prior to me for 27 years, just an incredible run. And so I was like, well, that job's never going to open because he's going to be there forever.
Right.
And um, and then the other job was like manager of the Charlotte Knights, the AAA team. So it's like, and then you're on the road for 80 games and going to spring training, so you're not really living in Charlotte.
Right.
But I mean, to me, that was the only two jobs that would allow me to do that. And so after we lost the Super Regional to Coach Butch Thompson's team, the Auburn, in Auburn in 2019, you know, the athletic director here at Charlotte, Mike Hill, called me about 2 weeks later to come interview. And I mean, I was 2 feet in, like, I was dead set on coming here. Um, I think, you've probably interviewed for jobs and people have given you advice. Like, it's the old, like, you know, if they offer you if they ask you, like, if we offer you the opportunity, you're going to come here, say yes. Like, nobody had to coach me up on that. Like, I was,
Right.
and I did get asked that, and I did say yes. And thankfully, a few days later, he called me and, I said, I'm in, let's go. And then he said, well, we should probably talk about, your contract and what that looks like. And I was like, yeah, let's figure it out. And so we did, but it didn't matter to me. Like, I wanted to be here, um, going into my seventh year here now is crazy with just how fast it's going. Um, but super proud of what we've done here. We've really only had 5 full seasons. This will be six coming up because of COVID. So
Yep.
my first year as a head coach here at Charlotte, um, uh, COVID hit, and we all remember that. And 17 games into our season, we were 9-8. We just come off of a big midweek win at NC State, who was a top 10 team that year. We took a bus ride home, and the next day or two, like, I'm having to tell the team here at home plate that the College World Series just got canceled. And that's my first year as a head coach.
Wow.
And, so from that point, it turned into rebuilding the roster, trying to navigate that whole thing. I think we brought in like 28 guys, and the 2021 team, with those 28 guys that we brought in and our COVID seniors we brought back, we won 40 games. We won Conference USA 24-8 in the league, and almost hosted a regional that first year in 21. And, pretty much from there, it's been mostly 36 wins or more each and every year. Been super thankful to have, I think, 21 players drafted in the last 5 years. So, for me, we talk here at Charlotte about, there's three things, four really, that all of our decisions center around. Like, if you come to Charlotte, you ask me, like, kind of like what to expect. Well, first and foremost, we want you to make your family proud. Second thing is, we want you to get your degree. The third is, we want you to help us win championships. And the fourth is, we want you to get drafted. So, like, if you, every single day here, the things that we talk about are, you know, those four things. And if you're making decisions and you have habits that align with those four decisions, you got a shot to do some pretty cool things. Like, if your habits don't line up with making your family proud and trying to get your degree and help us win championships and get drafted, like, you're going to come up short, because the standards here are high. And, um, that's a program that we take a lot of pride in being.
What's the enrollment about at the school?
We're the third largest school in the state.
Wow.
So, if you just, yeah, I think University of North Carolina, NC State have the two top enrollments, and then we're third. So, we're sitting here with about 33,000
Wow.
enrolled students in the 14th largest city in the state. As a native, I'll tell you, I actually love it because we're 8 miles north of the skyline. So if you come visit campus, or you just do a quick search of University of North Carolina, Charlotte, we go by Charlotte, but the academic side is
Yeah.
in the UNC system. So if you do a quick search of our campus, I mean, you're going to see trees and brick, like unified brick buildings, and everything is super nice, and that sort of thing, because we're not one of those city schools that's like in the city. Like
Right.
we're a little bit north, to the point where it's nice, and you've got some space. And if you like to hunt and fish, then we've got Lake Norman just 3 or 4 miles away. If you like live music, we've got the PNC Amphitheater right next door. But then again, if you want some of the best restaurants in Major League City, like, it's 8 miles south. So it's a tremendous place to go to school and get a degree and play college baseball.
Let's just talk a couple of things at the end here, recruiting wise. Obviously, you guys have a lot to offer. You got a heck of a program. You at the head. You just talked about the area, the school. Um, when it comes to recruiting, I think most coaches are, for the most part, looking for similar things. Position players you want, obviously skill, physicality, some speed, leadership. Pitchers you want command, you want some velo, some quality secondary stuff. Outside of somewhat of the obvious, if you will, is there anything that you specifically look for, whether it's a specific on-field trait or a mental characteristic that you are really looking for before you go ahead with somebody?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say, I was talking about this actually just with some people at the convention um, a week or so ago. I mean, I would say one of the biggest things that's changed in the last 10 years is like we used to like we used to go physically watch players with our eyes first, and then start to like either get them on the phone, talk to them, get to know them, and then do like recon on their track record and performance. It's almost like backwards now. Like
Mm.
it's almost like it's almost we still will go out. We still obviously go out and watch games, and we're watching film. And um I mean, Blake Gillespie, our second team All American Friday guy last year, like we saw him in a college summer league first. But like so much nowadays with like not so much the high school guys, but like the transfer guys and like portals and the junior college guys, it's almost like we see their metrics first. We see their performance first in terms of just their track record. So it's like, it could be like their batted ball metrics, their performance metrics, their pitch shape metrics, like I said, performance metrics. And then it's like, hey, we like these guys. And then we pull up the video. If we like the video, then it's like, then we get them on the phone to like, really try to get to know them. So we've already done a ton of the legwork before, we really get guys on the phone. And from that point, it's like, as soon as it's almost like that point, it's like, hey, we already like them metrically. We already like the visuals of, who they are as a player from video or in-person scouting. And then it's like, then you get them on the phone, you can just, they start to check all the boxes as far as just selflessness and character and humility and toughness and sort of relentlessness. Just a lot of the things that we look for at Charlotte, that we believe play and win championships. And then, that's when it's like, hey, we can't get this guy on campus fast enough and offer him an opportunity. So it used to be like you kind of go out and you use your eyes first, and now it's like it's almost like your eyes are. We've already done the homework on. We already know this player's a good player, and then we kind of you know go from there.
I think that's probably the smarter way to go about it, just with the sheer number of players there are in tournaments and travel teams and camps and a million things. It does seem to make more sense to almost already kind of like this guy, and now your eyes at the end are just telling you, you know, does it look in person like it looked on the metrics and on video? So that's certainly makes sense. One thing I noticed when I was looking at your roster, and this is kind of related to Charlotte and you, but more of just the new wave of what's happening. I see a lot of guys you have from academies, from P27, from those types of places. What are your thoughts on those places that are basically high schools that are kind of baseball first while kids are taking some classes, whether they're undergrad or doing the postgrad? That seems to be more in the North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, up here in the Northeast. We have prep schools, but not the baseball academy. Do you see that as a more prominent place to recruit kids?
It's for us, it's kind of one of those things. It's like a, oh, by the way, oh, by the way. It's like, again, we've like done the homework, like he's a good player. And then it's like metrically or performance track record wise, we think he's a good player. And then we watch video or film or him in person and he's a good player. And then it's like, oh, by the way, he goes to one of these, one of those schools you're provided. It's not like we don't really start there and say,
Got it.
it's kind of like a, oh, by the way. It's really, we try not to be super biased as far as where guys come from. It doesn't really make a difference to us. I mean, we've got guys that have come from those types of places. We've got guys that have come from small town North Carolina, 1A, 2A schools who didn't play travel ball. It really, premier junior colleges, Power Four programs. I mean, we've got guys from all over. So it doesn't make a difference to us. Kind of, it's more of an, oh, by the way, type thing. But I think it's
Um,
great. I mean, obviously you want guys that are committed to the game and love it, and typically guys that are, they're living it and breathing it at the high school level. There is an element that shows you how bad they want it. And but again, there's guys that are three sport athletes at 1A and 2A schools who can't afford to go to those places.
right,
And then they get here and they're awesome. So
right.
yeah.
All right, last question I wanted to ask is you just mentioned you were at the convention. Tomorrow here in Connecticut is the Mohegan Sun World Baseball Coaches Convention, which is a really great Northeast one. They sponsor this podcast. So this kind of, if you will, with almost learning in mind at these clinics, if would there be one or two things you would want a 16, 17-year-old version of yourself or a kid that's watching that would love to play at Charlotte and wants to know, hey, what are the things I need to be doing? Whether it's a mental thing or habits or strength training, is there anything that you could say, hey, this is something that's really important when you're a high school sophomore, junior to get to the level where you're at?
That's a great question. Yeah, I would looking back, one of the things that really helped me that I think still plays is uh, stacking days and being great when nobody's watching.
Hmm.
Um, there's Anson Dorrance is one of the best coaches of any sports at the collegiate level. Longtime women's soccer coach at the University of North Carolina. I think won like 26 or 27 national championships. And he says the vision of a champion is someone that's hunched over, drenched in sweat when nobody's watching. And that still plays. It is like, to me, the players, like I talked about Blake Gillespie earlier, and he's a second team All American here, Friday guy, ninth rounder by the New York Yankees. The videos I have on my phone from watching him in the weight room when he was the only one in there putting up weight, and he starts on Friday and he's in there Sunday morning at 8 a.m. and he's the only one in there. It's like he's winning the Friday start next week by what he's doing Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Like that. So showcases, tournaments, games, and as a 16, 17-year-old, they certainly matter. But like the guys who are willing to be the only one in the cage, the only one in the weight room, the only one out on the pavement, like, with their running shoes on, whatever, the guys who are making the choices to put the right fuel in their bodies because again, they're buying into stacking days. Those are the things because the guys who are doing that at 16 and 17 years old who are not as talented, like they will eventually get there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really well said and something I remind these kids that I'm trying to help with recruiting. I said, it's great you're doing all the things you're going to the practices when the coach says and you're going to your lessons, but like what else are you do? Like, are you doing stuff alone? Are you doing stuff with a buddy? That's just as you talked about, so important. You're right. And really we could unpack this, which we're not. Even all these things you've done vetting these recruits when they still come into campus, sometimes it always doesn't always go the way you expect because there's intangibles that you can't measure until you start seeing these kids. And you're right, there's a kid at 16, 17 may not be tracking to be at a high level school, and maybe he gets there because he just consistently works and it just gets better. So that's a really good reminder. So Coach, this was awesome to get to meet you. Really excited
Same.
about, yeah, your program is fun to talk chess. Definitely maybe talk that at I would say we'd play each other, but you'd smoke me. It wouldn't even be a game for you, but maybe I'll get to your level. On a side note, I have a cool cafe in my neighborhood. It's called Harborview Market. It's one of the few in this country that's in a neighborhood, meaning it's like house market. Opens
Mm.
at 6 in the morning. I walk in there at 6. There's a group playing chess.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they're like just
Yeah.
old, and they're in there every day, and they love it. But
One of my
thanks. So,
one
yeah,
of my yeah one of my favorite places up there in the Northeast is was it Bryant Park and Union Square in New York
yes,
City. I always
yes.
whenever I'm up in New York, if I'm walking by Bryant Park or Union Square and there's guys running games. I mean, you could see, you know, you see a wide range of people there, as you know, and but
Yes.
they're like hustlers and brilliant players, and like so my friends or whoever I'm with, they always know that I'm always going to drop in and try to run games with those guys. That's like one of my favorite things to do.
That's awesome. That's great. All right, Coach. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Wayne.
All right. You don't have to jump off. That was awesome. I really appreciate it. And I know you're about to get cranking busy, so I appreciate you spending some time with me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, if you ever want to follow up, talk more ball, or if I can connect you with anybody else, just let me know.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode with Robert Woodard, head baseball coach at Charlotte. Hope you learned some valuable lessons as I did. Again, I'm Wayne Mazzoni, your host, coached college baseball many years, and now am a recruiting advisor. For more information about what I do, you can visit my website, baseball collegebaseballadvisor.com. I think I'll do that again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode with Robert Woodard, head baseball coach at Charlotte. Appreciate you being here. Again, I'm your host, Wayne Mazzoni, coached college baseball many years. Now I run College Baseball Advisors. For more information about what I do with recruits, please visit my website, collegebaseballadvisor.com. And also, please visit our sponsor, the World Baseball Coaches Convention, which starts tomorrow, January 15th through the 17th at the Mohegan Sun Casino. Fantastic lineup of speakers. The schedule is all online, a chance to register and meet lots of great people. You could go to baseballcoachesclinic.com to register and get more information. And we'll see you on our future episodes. Our next two are Chris Marks, head baseball coach at Campbell, and then Josh Heenan, Dr. Josh Heenan, who is the founder and owner of Advanced Therapy and Performance. And we're going to talk more about a particular post he had on social media, which got a lot of interest and attention about things that developing modern athletes are facing in terms of things they should be doing to maximize their potential and also things they should be avoiding. So we hope to see you on those future episodes. For now, take care and we'll see you soon.